Do you want to see Israel destroyed?
Yeah.
It's what the nation is talking about, the war with Iran. I went to the big protests in New York City to speak to both sides and all the nuance in between. I will also be exposing the professional protesters that I encounter. Enjoy and welcome back to the Nate Friedman Show.
I noticed there's a trans flag on the library, but this is a protest for Iran, and they don't allow gay people in Iran. So can you explain kind of the irony of that?
Do you understand the irony of what the Supreme Court, the question you're asking me, and what the Supreme Court just decided for trans kids today?
Yeah.
In our Supreme Court, do you know what decision they made?
Yeah, they're not allowing trans kids anymore.
That's
Not allowing that surgery to happen.
and that's what I'm going to leave it at.
Yeah. Do you believe that we should mutilate children?
I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you.
So what she's talking about is that the Supreme Court upheld Tennessee's law banning gender-affirming care for minors. They ruled that it doesn't violate the 14th Amendment. Now, it actually didn't have anything to do with the surgeries even, but moving forward, this means that states are allowed to ban puberty blockers and hormone treatments for transgender kids under 18 if they want to. It wasn't actually even putting a federal ban on becoming a transgender minor in this country. They've just let the states decide about puberty blockers. And that so-called discrimination, she's saying, is on the same level as Iran executing gay people. That's not speculation either. Iran's top diplomat says that his country executes gay people because of, quote, moral principles. Now, she's out here protesting for Iran in front of a trans flag, and she's holding this sign for one man, and his name is George Soros. Watch this. That sign she's holding goes to a website, answercoalition.org. It stands for Act Now to Stop War and End Racism. They were founded over 20 years ago, and their primary fiscal sponsor is the Progress Unity Fund. The Progress Unity Fund gets their money from the Tides Foundation. Now, guess who gave the Tides Foundation $25.8 million in just 1 year? George Soros. Now, this goes even deeper, but I'll save that for later in the video because this right here is one of the craziest interviews that I've ever done.
Can you tell me what you're doing out here?
Isn't it obvious?
No, tell us.
Protesting.
Protesting what?
Pro-Iran, pro-Palestine,
Yeah.
anti-Israel,
And when you say pro-Iran, are you talking about the government or the people?
both. Definitely the government.
Definitely the government?
Yeah, I mean the people in the government, but yeah, I'm thrilled about the Iranian government.
You are thrilled about it?
Yeah, I mean it's the only country that stands up to Israel.
Yeah. Were you at
And will
the...
hopefully destroy it.
Yeah. Okay.
Iran is the only country that stands up to Israel and will hopefully destroy it. Not exactly a call for peace that you'd expect to hear at a protest like this.
One of the things that the Iran government, and that's what I've heard from some of the Israel side, they said that they make you wear a hijab and that is crazy to make the people do. So what is your response to that?
We're going to overthrow the government because of that? I mean, it's obvious bullshit like everything else.
Yeah, no,
I mean,
it's
it's bullshit that Israel really, or that they give a about that. I wish the Iranian government didn't do that. And again, I think they have bigger issues than that. And it's really stupid to piss off the population for no reason. And they've definitely eased up. There are protests against Israel now in Iran with women without hijabs that still want to destroy, against Israel, that still want to destroy Israel, and they're not wearing hijabs.
I have not found any credible reports of women without hijabs calling for the destruction of Israel in Iran. There have been many anti-hijab protests that result in many arrests, although. Most famously when Mahsa Amini was killed in police custody over wearing an improper hijab. That started multiple protests against the regime, and counter-protests began with people saying death to Israel and death to America, and they were the ones wearing hijabs.
So again, it's bullshit. It's like Afghanistan. We started the Afghanistan war for women, to get educated.
Yeah,
now we left and we don't give a flying after we destroyed it. So it's usual propaganda because they think ignorant Americans are going to go, yay, women, we care about women. We don't care about, but fortunately most Americans know that bigger issues.
You would say that you do have issues with the Iranian government.
I wish they didn't enforce the hijab. Again, it's not a hijab. It's a headscarf. They wear the loose, headscarf.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think women. like I'm against countries like France that forbid wearing the hijab. You know, like I think women should be able to do whatever the hell they want.
So France does allow hijabs. In fact, by the look of how Europe is doing right now, you could argue that it's encouraged. The French Soccer Federation did ban participants in competitions from wearing religious symbols such as hijabs, and the French also don't allow you to wear conspicuous religious symbols in public and secondary schools. Now, both of those bans prompted many protests with women wearing hijabs, so by no means is the hijab completely banned in France.
Iran is funding Hamas and Hezbollah. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah,
Like, do you feel like that's a good thing to do?
of course.
Okay. And why is it a good thing?
Resistance to
Understand? No, I completely get it.
Israeli
Yeah.
crimes.
Yeah,
occupation crimes.
I understand.
absolutely.
I understand. So they think how could you fund Hamas because Hamas did October 7th? What are your thoughts on that?
Resistance.
Yeah.
Resistance is actually legal. Resistance to illegal criminal occupation is actually legal. Like Israel does not have the right to defend itself as against the people it's occupying, but the people it's occupying have the right to resist.
Gaza wasn't even occupied. Israel withdrew in 2005, and according to her, Israel should have let Hamas eliminate as many Jews, Arabs, and Christians living in Israel because Israel doesn't have a right to defend itself. This woman living in America is pro-Hamas, pro-Hezbollah, and according to her pin, she's Jewish. If you ever wondered how in the world there were Jews who supported Hitler, well, now you're getting to know one of them who would have. The Association of German National Jews was an anti-Zionist and anti-communist movement. They thought that Hitler would rescue them from this horrible movement called Zionism and save them from communism. They just ignored how Hitler wanted them dead, and of course that's what happened. Just like now, Hamas has been clear since its inception that they want to eliminate every Jew on earth, and yet this woman just said that she supports them. She is the biggest chicken for KFC that I have ever encountered. This woman you are listening to right now is also saying that the kidnapping and murder of the Bibas babies counted as resistance.
So the military part, which it was originally started as a military action, and then it ended up being too easy. And yes, after they broke out, some other people followed it, whatever. I'm against, the civilian deaths, although a lot of the civilian deaths were the Hannibal Directive, like Israel killed them. But yeah, so, and the rapes and the child beheadings, that's all bull crap, like that didn't happen. But there were, they killed some civilians. I'm against that. The attack on the military base.
Hold on, I'm confused. You're saying you're against, because I think the number's like 1,200. Right?
Again, Israel killed a lot of them,
Okay,
yeah.
right. I understand.
I think I think it like that was original. I think it got lower.
Okay, but so you are against
you. Military.
Okay, but you're against the civilian deaths in Israel? You are against?
I'm against the civilian. Like I'm against the few civilians that Hamas killed. Again, Israel killed most of them.
When you say a few, so are you saying that Israel killed like 1,000 of them?
It was mostly an attack on the military bases that were like surrounding, Gaza. And then again, they assumed that they were all going to get killed. But then they didn't, because that operation was too easy, because IDF only knows how to kill unarmed civilians. And then they were roaming around, and they did end up killing some civilians, which I am against.
Are you saying, because I watched the footage of October 7th, the like uncensored, footage.
They killed some civilians.
And I saw that like the kibbutzes that they're killing. Are you including that? And you're saying
I'm including that.
Wow. Okay. Hamas filmed their own atrocities on October 7th, most of which you can still find online. To claim they only killed a few civilians is a blatant and pathological lie. As for the Hannibal Directive, it has nothing to do with targeting civilians. Its sole purpose is to prevent Israeli soldiers from being taken hostage, which can sometimes involve risking the soldier's life to stop an abduction in progress. It's a policy that has been retired for nearly a decade, and there were some reports that it may have been reinvoked on the 7th, but it's very irresponsible to compare an extremely niche case of preventing horrific captivity of a soldier to Hamas intentionally targeting children. Now, the protest is about to move toward Times Square, but I didn't want to end the interview just yet, as I felt that we were getting closer to the truth behind this movement.
Do you want to see Israel destroyed?
What?
Do you want to see Israel destroyed?
Yeah. Well,
I mean, your pin says you're Jewish, right?
At this point, I do. I used to believe in the one democratic state solution. But, okay, so Iran is not like carpet bombing. They're not doing a Gaza and Israel. They're going for military targets. So yes, I want them to destroy bases, the Mossad headquarters, the airfields, I would love for them to assassinate Netanyahu, Ben-Gvir, and Smotrich, especially Ben-Gvir and Smotrich. I don't care about Netanyahu. I would love for them to do that, yes.
Okay. And
weaken it to the point where it can be like imploded from within.
Would you say that it's fine if millions of Jews died in that process?
What?
Would you say that it's okay if millions of Jews died in that process to that pursuit?
Well, as long as the Israeli government is using them as hostages. Do you know they're not allowing them to leave? Like Israeli citizens are not. What does that tell you?
Well, she's finally said the quiet part out loud. She is perfectly okay with a genocide if it means taking out two political opponents. A genocide of her own people, by the way. Now, of course, it's evil. That's hard to comprehend, but at least you are hearing it for yourself, and it's not something that you have to guess anymore. As for Israel, quote, not letting their citizens out, yeah, closing the airport because you are being bombed by Iran isn't exactly imprisoning your citizens. It's keeping them safe in the bomb shelters, which are built in Israel and not in Gaza because Israel values human life and Hamas does not. So who's behind these claims? Who's funding this movement that she's a part of? Keep watching as I'm about to tell you. But first, did you see that Khalil actually got released? Now, I had gone to many of the protests and researched Khalil extensively, and I have to say that I am quite surprised. Now, sources on the left are calling it a win over an authoritarian takeover, while sources on the right are highlighting that the judge was appointed by Biden. The easiest way to see this contrast in the media is by using ground news. It's almost as if you had every news source all in one place and you can carefully see what each side is saying, and even more importantly, not saying. I use ground news to prepare for my videos because it helps me gain a new perspective before talking to protesters. For example, maybe you saw, maybe you didn't, that Trump said Tulsi was wrong about Iran and Israeli strikes. 10 out of the 13 sources that covered it leaned toward the left. Now, whenever there's a disagreement in the administration, it tends to get more covered on the left. I still want to know about those stories, and that's why I use ground news blind spot feed. It doesn't just show you what's trending, it exposes what each side is choosing not to cover. You should consider getting ground news just for the entertainment factor of knowing why that person in your life sees news the complete opposite way that you do, or because you genuinely want to stay informed regardless of who is covering the story. Ground news is such a great fit for us that you can get 40% off of the same plan that I use, which is the Vantage plan. Go to ground.news/Friedman, the link is in the description, or just scan the QR code. You'll be taking control of your news while directly supporting this channel and helping me to continue to have security at these protests. And now, back to the interviews.
So last thing, tell me. It's interesting.
I want them to be able to leave, but if the government doesn't allow them to leave, oh well.
So you're Jewish, right?
They empowered that government. Yes, I am.
You're Jewish.
I'm a long-time anti-Zionist.
Okay. Well, so tell me, like, the common criticism is that there's 7 million Jews in Israel. You are Jewish. People say, what's going to happen to the Jews in Palestine from the river to the sea? What's going to happen to those Jews? So what do you say to the Jews who are pro-Zionist?
Normally, from the river to the sea meant a democratic state with equal rights from the river to the sea, which is what I believe in. Like, I'm anti-Zionist. I'm not for genocide or ethnic cleansing of Jews. I'm for.
But you just said that you were okay if a million Jews died.
Well, if the government decides to use them as human shields, then they need to overthrow the government, I guess. Shouldn't they overthrow the government? Isn't that what Zionists are telling Iranians to do?
You're just saying,
isn't that what they're telling Palestinians to do?
It's a very interesting perspective because you're Jewish and you're saying it's okay that a million Jews died.
I mean, I don't think Iran is interested in like carpet bombing Israel.
They've said death to Israel.
They're not carpet bombing Israel. They're targeting like actual targets.
Israel has an Iron Dome though, no?
Yeah, and it's not working, obviously. I mean, it's not. Like, it works with like homemade, Hamas and Hezbollah rockets, or Hezbollah ones are not homemade, but like Iran has some really serious rockets. So, like the hypersonic ones, it's not getting like at all. Like it hasn't gotten it's like they're hitting the targets.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. What do you do for work?
I don't.
You don't work? Why not?
I don't have to.
So you did well.
I haven't worked license has 27.
Now, I think she actually is working and as a professional protester. Here's her protesting without her sunglasses on. She usually does have them on. Here's her saying HP profits from Israel's torture of Palestinian political prisoners. Here's her saying democracy is not for sale. Back again with the Palestine flag, and again with the South African flag. Now, it's not just her, as we know that they work in teams. Look at this blonde woman beside her. I found her at more protests than any other paid protester I've exposed in the past. I found her at close to 50 different protests, all within a couple of years. So who's behind this team of people chanting for Israel's destruction on America's streets? Their name is Sami Dune. It's an organization based in Canada, and they are sanctioned by Canada as a terrorist group. In fact, in October of 2024, US and Canada issued joint statements listing Sami Dune as a terrorist entity. Canada called them a sham charity who funnels money into the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, which is a Marxist organization that recognizes a one-state solution with no Israel. Germany banned the group after members of Sami Dune passed out candy celebrating October 7th. The founder of Sami Dune at a rally in Vancouver publicly called Hamas heroic on the 7th and said that Hamas and Hezbollah don't engage in terrorism. If you look at the photos of this woman I interviewed, they almost all come from Sami Dune's website. Now, the Tides Foundation and the Tides Center is behind this, and you remember the chief donor of the Tides Foundation, George Soros. However, all you see is that the Alliance for Global Justice is their fiscal sponsor. But if you lift the hood, you see that Soros gives to Tides, Tides gives to AFGJ, which then gives to Sami Dune. Soros, along with the New Venture Fund, gave more than $9 million to the AFGJ, which again is the fiscal sponsor of Sami Dune. They want it to look complicated so you don't see this, but make no mistake, Soros is funding this. It is also important to note that you can't even donate to the AFGJ with Stripe or PayPal or any normal methods, as all of those companies consider them terrorists. Yet they are still walking the streets of New York City screaming for the downfall of America. Next up, I saw this big argument happening and wanted to know what was going on.
What's going on?
Bro, relax. So, would anybody like one? No.
What is this about?
It's a picture of Kafia with Bin Laden.
Can you show the camera?
Very good. Yeah.
Okay, what's your? Can you?
No. I think you forget what happened.
Can you tell us, sir? Can you tell us what he's doing?
He's trying to provoke people by handing out pictures of Khomeini, pictures of Bin Laden.
Yeah.
And I want to see a picture of Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump is a fraud. Don't you get it?
Can you
They're
explain?
killing people with your money.
Yeah. So we want
They're
to.
massacring children with
wanna-
your money.
Who's massacring? Explain to the audience.
I think it's called Israel.
Okay.
It's called the government of Israel. It's not a Jewish, it's not a Christian, it's a country. When a country commits a war crime, you have to blow the whistle. It's a war crime.
No, it's not.
They're killing. If you tell me you're good. Why don't you go back to Israel and fight for what you believe in? So don't stand around. Here, take Khomeini with you.
I don't want that.
Good. You take Bibi and go shove him up your.
You're an angry.
No, I'm not. I'm a
Let him go.
Brooklynite that hates spending my money on your stupidity.
Sir, I want the world to understand. Sir, I want the world to understand your perspective. Okay. So, can you explain?
Who you work for?
My name is Nate Friedman. I'm an independent journalist.
For who?
I'm a street interviewer. I work for myself.
You don't work for the New York Times, do
No,
you?
I know. What's
Here we go again with this guy calling me a right-wing troll.
Work for the New York Times, do
No,
you?
I know. What's
Now, I guess he forgot to bring his Soros-printed arrow with him. He's yet again another paid protester. Here is him holding up a sign with this radical left Orthodox Jewish group who I will expose in next week's video, so turn on notifications for that. They are at the front and center of almost all these protests, and it's time for America to know the truth about them. But first, this paid protester is now trying to call me a troll, and he's wearing a vest with a Palestine flag, and as you know, those two things don't blend very well together, because, well, here is him getting arrested at a different protest, and again and again at the front and center of many more protests. And if you recognize him or the woman I interviewed, DM me.
What's your issue with the New York Times?
The New York Times is filled with lies about the war in Iraq. They brought us to war in Iraq, and they're doing it again because we shouldn't go to war, because W says mass destruction weaponry.
Okay, but sir,
Nuclear weapons are real.
I want you to shut down the haters, sir. I have a question.
Well, he did have his talking points, but he didn't actually want to have a conversation. He did want to fight people, though. Later on, I did see this same guy in another video agitating Israel supporters. And again, these people are very dangerous, and I'm happy to see that the NYPD's presence is growing at these protests. Unfortunately, I found that the guy freaking out and trying to fight Israel protesters is a retired science teacher. Now ask yourself, would you like your kids to be taught by this guy? Now I'm going to show you about a minute of one of the guest speakers at the protest. I will cut through the crowd after and interview him, but I thought that it's important to hear what he's saying to all the NGOs and the unemployed people at this protest.
Our first speaker, we have Mehmet, an Iranian American and co-founder of EV Loves NYC.
Now this is incredible. The guy introducing him can't even remember the NGO he works with because there's just too many.
From the belly of the beast, hands off the Middle East. So last week I was in another protest against the travel ban, and I was talking about how my 77-year-old mom that is living alone in Iran, in Shiraz, is now not able to come to America to see her sons and how she's left alone there. A week later, now her life is in danger. Last 3 nights ago, we had the bomb that went down 3 blocks from where she lives. All the windows of our house is broken. These are the things that no one want to show you when we are talking about this.
Now he's protesting here and not in Iran. He's actually against the regime in Iran, and maybe it's because of things like this, I don't know. But it would seem as though that not everyone out here protesting for Iran is in support of the Iranian government, which is an important distinction to make.
I haven't been able to go back to Iran for 15 years because the Iranian regime also thinks that I'm enemy, because we stand up, we talk about human rights. We talk about all the things that they do. So they think that we are enemy. American government thinks that we are enemy just because we stand for what is right. They give you all this bullshit in media that we are doing precision attacks, that we are doing this. What they don't show you is that within 4 nights, 250 civilians have been killed in Iran. Trump comes overnight and be like, people of Tehran, like, evacuate. There are 17 million people, twice the size of New York. Where do they go? What do they do? That's not how it works.
Trump is going after Iran because he believes that they're building a nuclear weapon. What is your response to that?
If they had the nuclear weapon, they would have never dared to go and do any of that. There are videos from 1986, before I was born, that Bibi Netanyahu says the same words, word to word, that they are a couple months away from having nuclear weapon. This has been their scapegoat for over 35 years. This is not a new story. The same way that in Iraq they did weapons of that mass destruction that never ended up existing, it's the same thing. If actually a country had nuclear weapon like North Korea, no one dares touching them. Because Iran stood against Israel, because Iran stood against American imperialism, because Iran stood against like all this unhinged capitalism that is standing in the world, they see them as an adversary that should not exist.
You mentioned in your speech that you're seen as an enemy in Iran, but also an enemy in America. Can you elaborate more how you're an enemy in Iran?
Yeah, so in 2009 there was a human uprising after the elections that for people, like they called it Green Revolution. I went back to Iran, I started fighting, like on the streets. We were fighting the Revolutionary Guard, we were fighting all these people, like all the regime there. So after that, after I had to run away from Iran, like they made propaganda videos that I am a CIA agent with like the Samsonites of money from America going there like to topple the regime. So on that side, they think that America, just because we stood for what's right and what human rights is. And now here, just because we say what America is doing is wrong, they call us Iranian agents.
I see. For Americans that are worried when they hear Iranian parliament chant death to America, what is your reservation? How can you reassure those Americans after they see those videos?
Okay. First, I don't support that, just to be clear. But I'm saying that even that means like Iran and America have never been enemies. If you cannot name one time in history that Iran attacked America or did anything.
What about when they took the hostages in 1979?
Obviously, that was very fucked up. And even then was like a retaliation of like the Shah in there. But I'm happy anyway, that was 40 years ago. A lot of those issues are gone. But I'm talking about the modern times. Like in the last 20, 30 years, like Iran has never attacked any of the American soldiers or attacked any of American like bases or anything there.
Now, I really appreciate him taking the time to talk with me, especially after he had just given a speech. He was super open, so I just wanted to first say that. But his claim that Iran has never killed American soldiers in modern history is not true. If you go by the proxies, Hezbollah did kill over 600 US troops in Iraq from 2003 to 2011. Now, this guy was very clear that he believed that Israel was committing a genocide, the usual stuff. However, again, it seemed like he was very against the Iranian regime, which, without being on the ground, you wouldn't necessarily know that. So next up, I saw a small presence of Israel flags at the protest and went to speak to them.
I think it's important for the world. They're here, they're making a lot of noise. We're small in numbers, but we're small in like the voice of the world, but we're a lot of people and we stand here to support Israel and America and against the Iranian regime that's oppressing the Iranian people.
Yeah. So I just spoke to one of the speakers here, and he says he's actually against the Iranian regime. He feels like he's an enemy here, he feels like he's an enemy there, but he says that bombs are not the solution to this. So what do you say to that?
I think that for 20 years the Iranian regime has ruled Iran and have made it very clear that the only way that they will go out is through violence. There's been multiple peace deals that failed. They were supposed to not have a nuclear weapon, and now we see that they were only a couple of days away from having it. So how do you have a nuclear deal and also build nuclear bombs? And the only way to disarm terrorists is to forcefully disarm them. Iranian threats towards the Jewish people, you can't have a nation, look at what they've done with ballistic missiles and drones. We can only imagine what Israel and the USA would look like if they had a nuclear bomb.
So what needs to be done in order to stop this chaos?
In Iran or in Gaza?
Just between Iran, US, and Israel.
I think that the Iranian regime needs to step down, they need to step aside, they need to learn that the world is not going to accept them oppressing the Iranian people and the entire world, and that they're a threat to Western civilization and peace. And until they step down, the war will continue, and we won't stop until they are no longer a threat to us here and in Israel.
What are your thoughts on how President Trump is handling this situation?
I think that President Trump has put up a very confusing argument. The media manipulation that went into this attack we're learning more and more about it every day. We're learning about how the US was in it and Trump was still telling Israel to back off while secretly planning with Bibi this attack in Iran. And really there's no way to know what Trump says is true or not true, or what he's saying or what's reliable. And we just have to wait and see what, between him and Bibi and the Israeli and American government, what they come up with. I think that the world really needs to learn that the Iranian people are supporting us, and the true Iranians before the IRGC and the non-indoctrinated people support us, and they're here for us. And we get endless support from the Iranian community. So really do your research and what you're standing here in support of with Iranian flags from the IRGC. That's not what the Iranian people want.
Yeah, when you say it's not what the Iranian people want, what do they want? What have you heard?
All we've heard is that the Iranian people are ready for peace, they're ready for women's rights, they're ready for democracy, and they're ready to not be hated by their own government and oppressed.
Next up, I was determined to see who the organizers were at this protest. I wanted to know as many of these NGOs before I left. Now, she gives me the classic line of,
I'm so sorry, but I'm actually not the media person. We have a specific person for speaking with people who do media.
While she's an organizer of a protest where the goal is to let as many people know about what you're doing here as possible. To go deeper into who was organizing this, I wanted to ask the people with the larger signs. The larger signs means that things were coordinated, but before I could speak to this guy, this dude with riot gear recognized me.
Can I talk to him? Why not? What?
He's yet again another professional protester where his sole job is to intimidate and instill fear into journalists like me. That won't stop me, and I went deeper into the protest to ask the people packing up the speakers how I can learn more about their organization.
I have a quick question. For those that were watching our coverage, what's the best way that people can get involved into organizing the protest?
In New York, the People's Forum is a great space to get politicized, to meet people in your community, to come together.
Like when I just see megaphones and speakers, so how is this being organized?
It's a coalition of people on the ground who have been doing this work for decades, who are coming from all the communities most impacted by our fascist state. The working class people.
For sure.
Yeah.
Is it a group chat that people can get into? Because some people want to be there organizing it. They don't just want to be on the sidelines in the protest. They want to be organizing. So how can they get involved? How can they
come to the People's
pick up?
Forum Monday nights, 6 p.m.
People's Forum. Where is that?
Forum. I think it's 37th Street, close
37th
by.
and what?
37th and 8th, I think.
And what's the company that runs it?
The People's Forum.
The People's Forum.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So now we know another nonprofit that is behind all this. One of the things that Charlie Kirk asked me when I went on his show was, who's paying for all this? Who's behind this? And I gave him an answer, which was that my investigation is ongoing. And you can see firsthand why that's the case. Just at this protest, there were so many different NGOs. But the most important thing is that many of them take their donations through Act Blue, and that'll give you an idea of who's behind all this. Now, thank you so much for watching. And if you would like to see ICE protesters confronted, just click this video, and I'll see you there.